Hello everyone, this is Sandy from Talk of Thailand, and it's been some while since I made a video, and here I am. I'm having a break away from Pattaya. Just now I'm in Buriram, in the Tada Chateau Hotel with the family, and having a nice break actually. But what I want to make this video about is to tell you my honest opinion about what's happening here in Thailand. Many of my subscribers and people who follow me on YouTube have asked me my opinion, which I'm very happy to give, and I respect the fact that they asked me for my opinion. Thank you. So I'd just like to warn you, there's a lot of fake news going around about what's happening here in Thailand, and a lot of people jumping the gun and etc. If you really do want to know what the current state is and what I think the future holds for us here in Thailand, then please keep watching. Thank you. So what is the current situation here in Thailand, and what does the future hold for us here in Thailand? Well, let me explain. Firstly, how is it here just now in Thailand? Well, it's actually not so good actually. It could be worse, but we have to bear in mind that Thailand is currently number 10, which means the worst out of the various countries around this area in the control of the COVID virus. And it's very easy to see why actually. You know, in the beginning, when the first two waves of COVID hit us, Thailand got hit very lightly. Although in the first wave they tried to do their best and they were preparing for the worst. But they got hit very lightly, and that made them breathe a sigh of relief. And then on wave two, virtually nothing at all, and that made them even happier. So they decided then, I think, that COVID in Thailand was not a problem. It was not going to affect Thailand too much. But they didn't bargain for the Bravo variant that came from South Africa, and then the Delta variant that came from India. And the other aspect that made a big problem for them was that they'd already done a deal with AstraZeneca to start manufacturing AstraZeneca in Bangkok for Thailand and the surrounding countries, which let them breathe a sigh of relief because they were going to start getting vaccine produced in Bangkok under license. Well, unfortunately, as far as I know to date, it still hasn't begun the production of the AstraZeneca vaccine in Bangkok. They've got problems going on, and that's another sad story. So when the Delta virus and the Bravo virus raised their heads, and then people started to get sick in a big way, in various areas of the country, starting actually around Bangkok area and in the south of Thailand. The Bravo variant seemed to come in from over the border in Malaysia, and the Delta variant came in through the capital city, and both those areas were hit pretty bad. And it started spreading into the outskirts of Bangkok and getting very serious. But the government was then in a real problem in the fact that they didn't have sufficient vaccines available to start a real program of vaccinating the nation. And what little they had wasn't going to go very far. Fortunately, at that time, China came to the rescue and promised Thailand all sorts of things, which, as China does when they're trying to get into bed with foreign countries. They said, okay, we're going to give you Sinovac virus, and we're going to give you Sinopharm virus, which in large amounts, which will help you immunize your population. Wow, that was good. So they started getting that in, but it still didn't come in quantities large enough or quick enough to roll out the vaccine properly. So Thailand was searching for other supplies of possible vaccines, and they managed to source some AstraZeneca, which has been a little bit of a godsend for them actually. That's really helped them along the road a lot. Well done, AstraZeneca. And then they started getting also in Pfizer from America. Reportedly now is one of the most effective vaccines that there is in the world. And they also started getting in some Johnson & Johnson. That was pretty recently actually, the one-shot vaccines. So they were getting there. Another aspect was that the Moderna vaccine, they said that they were going to supply Thailand with so many million doses, and the Thai government said that this would be also, it would also be available for hospitals to purchase directly from Moderna and sell on to customers. So the hospitals, many hospitals started an advertising campaign saying, okay, you can get the good Moderna virus from us, but it's going to cost you, I think in the region it was about 3,600 baht, which is close to £100 UK or $100 odd dollars actually for the 2 shots. So many of my fellow expats and Farangs, they thought, okay, let's get this booked up, because the hospitals, if you wanted it, you had to book it up and you had to pay for it in advance. So my understanding is that many did, and I didn't, but I don't know why I didn't actually. I thought, well, something's got to happen anyway, so just as well I didn't, because what's happened is that the government started getting much larger quantities of vaccine, particularly Pfizer and AstraZeneca. The Thai rollout, all the Thais were getting a first vaccine of a Chinese, one of the Chinese vaccines, Sinovac, which a lot of people were having problems with actually. And then for the second dose, because suddenly the government realised that this wasn't all it was cracked up to be, this Sinovac virus, the second dose that they were giving Thais were the AstraZeneca. So making it, the combination a little bit more efficient. The efficacy went up, hopefully, against the virus. But I've got to say also that there was no clinical trials that had proven that fact actually. It was just the government had to do something because it was getting very much out of hand. And then Pfizer really picked up a lot, and they were sending, in America thankfully was sending in a large amount of Pfizer here to the country, and I've been fortunate. I've had my 2 vaccines now, both of them Pfizer, and I'm very happy with that. No, my only concern was that I had been reading that you had to wait about 8 weeks to get maximum efficacy between the 2 vaccines. Well, they're doing it here in 3 weeks in Thailand, so we're not going to get as prolonged an efficacy, or maybe not as efficient an efficacy. I'm not too sure of that, but it's not going to be quite as efficient as the absolute recommended spell, I'm sure. Maybe the 8 weeks would have given us a longer and better response, but okay, I'm happy. I've got 2 Pfizer, my wife's got one Sinovac Chinese, and she's got 1 AstraZeneca. Moderna has kept putting on delays, and many Farangs expats who had paid for this have been waiting patiently for the Moderna to come along, and it's not coming. So consequently, a lot of people have turned to what's been on offer from the government. A lot of them missed the Pfizer, but they're now taking the AstraZeneca option just to get something into their arms to assist. Moderna keeps putting the date back, and I saw last week that the hospitals are saying that they're not providing refunds because they ordered the amounts they've ordered on the basis of the people that have booked to get their vaccines out. So there is no refunds for the people that have paid for the Moderna, and I would imagine a large majority of them now have been fully vaccinated by the Thai rollout. But however, it's still nowhere near what it should be here in Thailand. There's still a lot of areas that are very low. There's a lot of people that had one vaccine, I suppose, but not so high a percentage. I don't know the exact percentages, I'm sorry, but I know it's not good for the 2 doses. And there is key workers that have already had a booster jab, so they realise that the initial combination of Sinovac and AstraZeneca is not the best thing in the world, so the key workers are now getting a booster to help them along the way. It's interesting now that even the doctors in China are saying that the vaccines that they have, well, or had, maybe they've developed more now, but the 2 that in question were not very good at fighting the Delta variant, particularly the Delta variation, or the Beta variation either. So this has been a major headache for Thailand also. Now, other headaches, of course, they've got is the financial and the economy headaches that they have here, in that many thousands of people are out of work. Don't forget that Thailand's GDP depends a lot on tourism, and it's one of the biggest tourist spots, or has been one of the biggest tourist spots in the world. Many people wanted to come to Thailand, and it's a beautiful country, and it's understandable why. But now there is no tourism. There was a stupid scheme thought up by the government about making a sandbox entry scheme, which was, excuse my French, a lot of crap that they thought up about getting people in to down to Phuket and bringing them into the country that way, where they didn't have to stay in quarantine so long, and then they could move around. And it turned out to be a load of bullshit anyway. And it was, although many Thais in the government are still claiming it to be a huge success, there isn't many outside that would agree with them actually, and it's including the people that have spent a lot of money to come into Thailand under that sandbox scheme. So that's the state we're in now. We're still divided up. The various provinces in Thailand are still divided up into deep red zones, which is highly dangerous or highly infectious, and then the red zones, which are not quite so bad, and then the orange zones, which are much improved, and the white zones where they don't see any problems at all. And I think there was only 1 or 2 white zones the last time I looked. There's a few more on the orange that have been downrated to orange from red, including where I am now in Buriram, which was one of the factors that initiated my interest in coming here this week with my family. So that's where we are. All the entertainment aspects are virtually closed up. When I say entertainment aspects, I mean nightclubs, bars, etc. Restaurants are allowed to sell meals, but no alcohol with meals, which is a real pisser actually. Except, of course, in the government well-acclaimed sandbox areas where they've now said that restaurants can serve alcohol. But the rest of the country, you're not supposed to do. Note, I say you're not supposed to do. So that's the way it is. There's also still a curfew going on. It's been extended, it's been not extended, it's been retracted a bit. It started from 9 till 4 and it's now down to 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock at night, from 11 p.m. in the evening to 3 a.m. in the morning. That's the current official curfew that we're working on at the moment. So it's not a pleasant place to be if you're a tourist, that's for sure. But for most of us expats who are used to living here, it's not a big deal. It's except for this virus is still pretty contagious, and we see spikes of it everywhere actually. The Thais are pretty good. The Thai people are pretty good in that they do abide by the mask regulations very well. Not as much as they're not as bad as the expats. A lot of them seem to think that they're gods and they can ignore the masks, and they get expats and Farangs people like me, they get them a bad name because they ignore all and they think they're. And if they get COVID and they die, then that's not a bad thing, I would think, because they are not above everybody else. So it's not easy living here at the moment. It's not bad. It's the internal travel is opened again. You can travel between provinces. Some provinces are still initiating if you come from a high red zone, which has got the high contagious rate, and you're going into say an origin, then you have to get a PCR test, and you have to have or have 2 vaccines, and you've also got to quarantine in some cases. But I don't think that anybody's taking that too seriously, actually, amongst other things. So we see in Pattaya, certainly the weekends have bucked up, I would say, because we see a lot of people coming down from Thailand and the outskirts coming down to get to the beaches and etc. And the restaurants, although they can't sell alcohol, a lot of them have opened up again. A lot have gone forever, of course. There's a lot of good restaurants that have shut up shop and sold up shop, and have even been demolished, actually. That's how serious it is. But we still see a good weekend trade coming down now, and that's helped boost the local economy at least a bit. But of course, it doesn't help those with all the girly bars, and it doesn't help a lot of the restaurants, etc., because these people are not intending to spending big money on things like that. Pattaya is a deserted town. It's an absolute shambles at the moment. Even to go down to the beaches, which I know some are critical of Pattaya's beaches, but I particularly like them, actually. I think they're good. They spend a lot of money on trying to maintain them. But just now, if you go down there, it can be quite depressing, because you see, just along the beach road, for instance, you can see hundreds of people with no money, no accommodation, looking for food, living in closed down shop front areas, and it's a disaster. And I know this is not only Thailand, actually. This is an aspect of a lot of places in the world at the moment. So it's not only Thailand that are going through these disastrous times, I know that, but it's still sad to see it. And from if you think back 2 years ago, what the beach road was like and all the life down there, etc., it wasn't as great as it had been, but it was still good. It was still a nice place to be. So for me, living in Thailand just now is still okay. I like the country, I like the food, I like the people, my family are here. So the climate's quite good, although we are suffering some problems from the climate warming, and that there's been a lot of flooding and rain, as in many other countries. And I don't think we've ever seen so much water here in Thailand for a long, long time. Many places are flooded out, dams are having to discharge out, causing more problems in the countryside because they're full and they don't want to cause any damage and major disasters. So they're discharging out to the open land, and that's, as I say, that's causing more problems. So that's the way it is. And to me, it's not too bad. But you've got to stay safe and you've got to obey by the regulations. And just while I'm saying that, since I've been here, I've got another video, an urgent video to make after this one. And it's something that will shock. It certainly shocked me on my arrival up here. And it will probably shock a lot of people in Thailand and outside Thailand. And it will also upset a lot of people as well, because it's a serious situation and it shows total disrespect for many people in Thailand, and I'll tell you about that in that video, which will be coming up very shortly after this one. So that's where we are now. So what about the future? What about the future? What do I think about the future? Well, let me say that the government has said it's going to start opening up Thailand on the 1st of November, and as I sit here, that's only 9 days away. But there's no distinct information about how they're going to open up or whatever, and we're hearing contradictions every day, every hour. We're hearing contradictions to what the Prime Minister says, to what other people says. So there's a lot of fake news going around. And it seems like there's a lot of vloggers, particularly expats, etc., that live on every word that's broached over the air and oh, I must make a video, and they consequently end up spreading a load of bullshit to the world, actually, and about when Thailand's open, and it's open now, and all this crap. It's not open, it's not changed, there's nothing changed. Believe me, at this moment of time, nothing has changed. Thailand is not opened up. And although they've announced they're going to open up on the 1st of November to 5 countries, those countries have not been confirmed. There was rumours of the countries that it might have been, but that's not been confirmed by anybody in government. And 9 days to go. Who's going to come here for the 1st of November when you don't even know here 9 days before what they're proposing? Now, for sure, they cannot just throw the doors open and ignore vaccine situations and go back to square one. That's not going to happen. So whatever they do, there's going to be restrictions. And it will involve PCR testing, it will involve at least some quarantine, it will involve all sorts of restrictions about where you can go and what you can do. I am sure, 100% sure of that. And to be quite honest, the Thai government seems to be under the misapprehension about that there's a whole world out there waiting to step on planes and come to Thailand when they give the word go. Well, that's another load of bullshit, actually, because if anybody with any sense looks at what's happening in Thailand now and looks at what's happening in Europe and other countries, USA also, they'll realize that traveling anywhere in the world is not a clever thing to be doing unless you absolutely have to. And I know there will be people that have to. So this 1st of November opening is, to me, it's not going to happen. It can't happen. It's impossible to happen. And anybody that would think about coming here if it did happen, what would invariably be the results of that is that the COVID contagion would go up astronomically here in Thailand, because people coming into the country, whether they've got it or not, will be able to move freely around, they'll get it, and once that starts happening, and other countries will see, hey, Thailand's opened up, but the virus levels are shooting up. Let's put Thailand out of bounds again. So many people could get actually stuck here and have problems getting back to their own country again, without quarantining on arrival in particular places like the UK. And none of that's a low expense solution to whatever you want to do when you go on holiday. So I would say my view is that nobody is going to be too interested in coming here this year. And I don't think that Thailand is going to make entry for tourists not so easy this year. Of course, I understand they've got a high priority to try and get some tourism going in hand. Now they've also made approaches to China, but China has shut their doors on Thailand. They know there's problems here, and they don't want to in China either. Vietnam and Cambodia, our neighbours, they've got serious problems, and they've closed their borders. Myanmar, which used to be Burma, of course, they've got serious problems. Sri Lanka, which is just further down near India, they've got serious problems. Everywhere's got serious problems here. So this is a bad part of the world at this present moment of time, along with many others. It's not as bad as Africa, as far as I understand, but it's still pretty bad. So what do I predict the possible outcome might be? Well, I'm not a betting man, and I wouldn't like to bet on anything, actually, how this might turn out, but I feel confident that this year and the beginning of next year, and maybe right up to the middle of the year, I don't see much change. I don't think it's going to be an easy place to come to. I don't think it's going to be a desirable place to come to. And I think anybody with any sense won't want to come here. So that's one aspect. Not until we get total control of COVID and vaccination scenarios, and we see a distinct drop in infections and life returning a bit to normal, then nothing's excuse me, nothing's going to change too much. You've only got to look at UK, you know. They were one of the leaders when the vaccine rollout came out, and they've done very, very well. They got a huge amount of the population double vaccinated very quickly, and look at it now. They've still got huge contaminations every day. They've still got large amount of deaths every day, and these are on the increase. Although they're not because people have been vaccinated, there's not as many deaths, I'll give them that, but there's still a lot of problems for the National Health Service. We're still getting full up with people with symptoms it requires them to be hospitalised and taken care of in hospital. So it's a big problem for the NHS in the UK, and the government see it coming, and once again they seem to be sitting with their thumbs up their bum and wondering what they're going to do about it. They don't seem to have any positive response, despite the fact that all the senior medical people in that saying, please act urgently, we need some urgent action, return to masks and whatever you need to do. Because, you know, it could well end up by Christmas being another lockdown area if they don't hurry up and do it, because the winter is going to be a problem in Europe and in the UK. Now, if they've had a successful vaccine rollout and Thailand hasn't, what's in the future for Thailand? It beggars belief what might be the outcome of all this, and particularly the fact that they've had a poor vaccine start with using poor vaccines. All this has got to be dealt with, and dealt with quickly and more seriously. And there doesn't seem to be the management system in the government here that are capable of making these decisions. I was going to be unkind saying maybe they're taking the government lessons from Mr. Johnson in the UK, but that's a bit unkind. I think they're better than Mr. Johnson here than in the UK. So, that's it for now. To summarise, I don't think we're going to see much change, certainly not before the middle of 2022. And even then, even when they do open the doors, you know, a lot of businesses have gone, a lot of people have gone bankrupt. Even when they do open the door, there'll be some good business opportunities for people that have still got money to try and get things going again. But a lot of the working population in Pattaya, for instance, have disappeared. They've disappeared up to the jungle and back home to their living on the farms with their parents, etc. And there's going to be no incentive for them to hurry back to various places like Pattaya, etc. Because any start will be a slow rollout and get up and going. So from that aspect, getting back to having a vibrant tourist community could take years. It could take years. So that's the way I see it. And of course, I also predict that Thailand, when it does get back to being in the faces of the tourists, is going to be a different Pattaya. It's not going to be the same Pattaya we saw before. I see many preparations here for making it a nicer location for tourists and making it a more family aspect for tourists, despite a lot of these people, despondent bar owners that would probably disagree with me, but we'll see who's right in the longer term. So thanks for watching, and that's how it is, and I hope you stay safe and take care. Bye for now. Bye.